I'm John Rhodes. I worked at the company for 28 years. Well, my background actually wasn't with Marconi's at all. I worked for Christie Brothers, which of course was another one of the old companies in the town. In fact, they were one of the original electrical contractors. I got a little bit fed up with that and joined the Marconi company. And sort of things went on from there. I ended up running the sound test department. Oh, I was at Kings Road and Rainsford. I was trained for, what should we say, industrial cannon fodder. That was, I think, what we looked at as.
An industrial espionage?
Well, not quite, no. Or that people might have thought that was the case later on, perhaps.
Your first job was
with Christie. Well, I was an electrical apprentice. I was there for about 6 years. I actually left Christie's and went and worked on a film, which was called the Iron Maiden.
So Peter Rogers decided to make the film and Gerald Thomas was asked to direct. Some stock footage was shot at Woburn during a previous rally, and then the filming of the script started in the summer of 1962. The Woburn site was set up as for a rally, and then some were surprised at the sight of the 18-ton Iron Maiden arriving on a 10-ton low loader. The Iron Maiden they were looking at was in fact a plywood replica especially made for the film. One can only imagine the reaction of the film company draftsman having been told to go make a drawing of a steam engine you'll find in a barn at Woburn when he opened the doors and found this inside. Responsible for the scenic design or set dressing was Carmen Dillon, at the bottom right of this picture. Carmen had worked on many productions at Pinewood, including the black and white film about the Titanic, A Night to Remember, where they repeatedly sank a 20-foot long replica of the ship in a large tank of water on the Pinewood backlot. The brilliant sunshine that week caused its own problems by causing heavy shadows, coupled with the shade caused by the engine canopies, which had to be washed away with the use of the Brute arc lamps. All 6 of which were driven from a diesel-powered DC dynamo housed inside an enormous Pantechnicon built with sound insulation 2 feet thick.
I worked on that, and then when that finished, I came back to Chelmsford and worked for the Marconi company.
Where did you join?
New Street. As a wireman, actually. Well, the wireman sits there and he's presented with a chassis and a pile of bits. You put it together, you wire it up, and off it goes to the test department.
Was it exciting?
Not really, no. It was one of those things that went on. And then they were looking for people to work on the Mark 7 cameras. Doing the modification, they'd gone from new Vista valves to the new latest FET version. And there were a whole crowd of us got pushed down into TV tests with Arthur Fisher and Jock Swan, and we were doing all the modifications on these cameras. We were coming back from all over the world for this modification. I think we were doing about 4 channels a week. They did complain that we weren't doing them fast enough. We did point out that to do 4 channels we were actually not only doing the wiring and the modifications, but also shifting 1.5 tons of equipment during the week. We're talking about the Mark 7, which was a 4-tube colour camera. It had 4 tubes in it, one for red, one for green, one for blue, and a black and white one. And the idea was that if you had a very low light situation, you could switch it over just to carry on in black and white. I don't know how many people actually did that. But of course you got a lot of extra definition using the black and white tube as well as, of course, as the green one, because most cameras have a red, green and a blue, and the green channel gives you most of the definition, and the red and the blue is just a little bit lower definition for the colours. But the 4-tube camera was a 2-man lift. Yeah, it was a big job, and we had some guys in from Thailand who were buying some cameras. It took 4 of them to pick it up. They were little fellas, they couldn't pick them up at all. They were great big things. But yeah, spent a lot of time doing optical alignment on those. In fact, I spent a whole afternoon once talking to a chap in San Francisco who'd taken the optical bed out of a Mark 7 and got the kit to put it back in but didn't know how to do it. So I sat there on the phone for a whole afternoon on a transatlantic call saying, where's the little cross gone now, where's the little dot gone, move it this way, move it that way, and eventually we got the thing lined up. But that must have been an expensive operation, I would imagine. And we had about 3 or 4 years of doing that, and we had a really good system of logging all the different modification states of the cameras and the boards and all the rest of it. And in fact, the contracts department used to come down to us and ask us where these various cameras were and what mod states they were in. So that was quite a useful setup that we had there. Of course, we're also doing telecine equipment. The B325 50, was it 50? Oh, whatever number it was. I spent about 3 or 4 years on that, doing projectors of that. I'd started playing around with film when I was 9 years old with 9.5mm, so I suppose it was just a natural progression from one thing to another. And also in my spare time I was at the Cranbourne Theatre running film down there. I worked with a chap called Michael Ham, who lived in Highfield Road, and he eventually became a film editor with the BBC. But we were running around when we were sort of at school with 9.5mm film. Eventually we progressed through 16 to 35mm, which is a little bit like the circus coming to town, and we eventually made a film called Her Village Summer, which is in the Essex Archive, or the Essex Film Archive nowadays. It was eventually found, it was almost finished when unfortunately he had an accident and was killed. And the film sort of disappeared. He'd been working for Humphreys up in London, and the film, the negative and the sound recordings disappeared. And eventually when Humphreys packed up, they found all this stuff, and it was in an archive underneath London Bridge. Well, they managed to get that out of there, and the film eventually got put together and was shown in various locations. In fact, I showed it at the Cranbourne Theatre, so it was a bit of a change just seeing your own name going up on the screen for recording sound. But there you are, that's just one of those things.
You've had a hugely varied and exciting life. Was your theatrical experiences a good foil for your wireman experiences?
Well, what happened was, of course, that the Marconi company got the benefit of the fact that I was working and doing other things, not really moonlighting, it was a hobby. I mean, other people go and play football. I was working backstage and doing sound and all sorts of things like that. And quite often you could, they would come up with the problem and say, well, we would do so-and-so, and you could get around the problems that way. There was a number of situations where I was able to get the company out of the jam. For instance, they had a very large transmitter on test over at Rivenhall, and of course when you test a transmitter, and this was a very large medium wave transmitter, you need to put the call sign out every 15 minutes or so. They had no way of doing that, and they said, oh, could you record the call sign for us? So I said, yeah, that's not a problem. So I recorded it, and I thought, knowing the company, they won't have any way of playing this back, will they? So I went and they said, have you got anything to play this back on? Oh, no. I said, well, you'll need a machine then, won't you? So I gave them a little UA Record L. I said, go and do it on that. I said, well, how are we going to pay for this? You have to send a bill in. I said, no, the company will not pay its employees if they send a bill in. The only way you can pay for it is to put it down as overtime. Oh, I don't think we can do that. Well, you need to pay for it some way or other, don't you? Yeah, well, I'll go, we'll arrange it so you can send a bill in. This guy goes round and round the company, couldn't do, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. He came back to me, he said, we'll stick it down to overtime. That's how we did it. Now, you may wonder why I'm sitting in front of Dame Nellie here. We have just finished doing a recording of a play by Tim Wonder called The Wireless Sings. It's taken a while to do because we had some computer problems. In fact, we changed the computer system, which blew the whole thing out of the water. We had to completely redo it. And so it's taken about a year. But we've just finished this thing. And whilst everybody thinks that it was Dame Nellie Melba who did the first song on the radio, in actual fact, it wasn't Dame Nellie. It was a young lady called Winifred Sayer. And this was in the very early days of 1920 when they were doing the test transmissions from New Street, and it was suggested they should put some musical interludes in instead of just reading Bradshaw's timetable. And so they did that, and they got a local group in called Freddie and the Funyuns, and Winifred Sayer was the singer. Discovered that the microphone they had, which was a modified telephone microphone, the fact that this thing wouldn't actually transmit all of the musical instruments together, and so they just had Winifred singing solo, and she sang a song called Absent, which had been written in 1895. And when they asked her, well, why did you sing that? And she said, because it was short. Which seems like a good idea at the time. Imagine walking up to that microphone in an old packing shed with a noisy generator going next door, being warned about the fact that don't touch anything metal, keep your hands in your pockets, don't move away from the microphone, sing at the same level. Poor girl, you know, never done it before. And eventually, of course, they got a load of QSL cards in from various places all over the planet. They put it in a book and they presented it to Winifred. And she found that the broadcast had been listened to by a chap using a crystal set on a liner out at sea, 1,500 miles out in the Atlantic, and he'd been listening to it. And this transmission went all over Europe, and of course all over British Isles, and they got recording from Lisbon and all sorts of places that they'd heard this. And of course then they upped the power to 15 kilowatts when Dame Nellie came in, and that broadcast went worldwide, apart from Australia. They did detect the carrier signal, but they couldn't actually hear the sound. And so Dame Nellie is always given the credit for doing the first, I suppose it was the first advertised broadcast. The one with Winifred Sayer was totally ad lib. But as poor old, much put upon Bill Ditcham said, we started something and the world was listening to us.
Wonderful. You must be a mine and a font of stories with a crossover from the world of stage and the world of stage and screen.
Yes, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you see both sides of it. You see the production side of it on the stage and all this business and running around with people doing film, and you see the other end where people are actually putting stuff together. But sometimes you get funny little comments, like when the Mark 8 cam was produced, had a couple of microphone sockets on the side of it, and I said, bet you haven't put the 50 volt phantom power supply on there. And this guy from Contract said, oh well, why would you want to do that? I said, well, because the microphones you would use for ground effects pickup, which is the only reason you would put a microphone on the camera outside, and they are phantom powered microphones, so you need the 50 volt phantom, 48 volt phantom power supply on the socket. Oh well, sound engineers are funny people, they probably won't use them anyway. I said, well, they won't if you don't put the right stuff on, will they? Amazing.
I don't know why no one spotted you. You should be front of house.
Me front of house. Well, you might see me on in various arenas doing commentaries on steam rallies nowadays from Marconi Radio, but that's another story.
Latterly at Marconi you were made redundant, weren't you? Was that to do with the decline and fall of the company?
I suppose it was. We'd been doing broadcast stuff for a long time. They amalgamated the studio bit with the transmitters. Trouble with that, of course, is that there's a black art of landline in between. So really we weren't talking the same language, so that made life difficult. And then a number of us got put off into the repairs department, and we were doing repairing bits of kit that we'd never seen before, and no idea what half of it did. So that was a little bit difficult. Then Marconi decided not to do transmitters anymore. Not doing transmitters anymore, that's crazy, that's what it's all about, for heaven's sake. And it sort of went downhill, and then people were being made redundant, and I think I was on the third lot out. Now, I thought, well, that's okay, because there's a community radio station starting up in Colchester. I'd been putting feelers out, and there were 7 different companies that were going for the licence. I was going to be doing the engineering and some of the presenting for 5 of them. I thought, I'm in for a good chance here. Now, the week I got made redundant from Marconi's, the chap who was in charge of the group of companies was Lord Pryor. We then found out that all of these companies that were going for this local radio station had all been usurped by SRG Radio, who had already built the studio for the news before the results of the licence application were even heard of. And so I got made redundant again, in effect, by SRG Radio. Who was the chairman of SRG Radio? Lord Pryor. I got made redundant twice by the same guy in the same week. Beat that.
What happened to you afterwards?
Oh, look, at the age of 53 or whatever it was, you're not going to get another job, are you? So the hobby had to become the job. I did some work, I did a lot of work for Marconi Radio. I did a lot of work for a company called Gigawave, which was at that time situated in Coggeshall, and they were the people who were doing the transmitters and the receivers for, if you watch Formula One racing cars and you get the pictures from the cars, they were doing the transmitters and receivers for that. And what you have there, if you notice on the racing cars, there's a little aerofoil shape just behind the driver's head. That's got the transmitter in it firing straight up in the air. you have a helicopter flying lazy circles round upstairs, somebody following with a receiving aerial, and you get the pictures down on the ground, and then that's fed into the television networks and all the rest of it. So that was something else I was doing for a while. Then came away from that, ended up with cancer, got round that, and retirement came along, and I thought, well, I'm just going to take it easy from now on and just do the bits that I want to do, and that's what I'm doing.